Chapter 3 Rebel Rouser. Red had lost all interest in the unparty. She exited through another path in the hedge maze, traveling parallel to the stately castle that sat at its center. The maze was both decorative and strategic, a landscaping feature that mirrored the queen's desire for neat beauty as well as her irrationality, and a mechanism that kept intruders out. Many a suspicious character got stranded in the maze's outer perimeter, which made Red laugh. That was child's play. The closer you got to the castle, the more complex the pattern became, with dead ends and switchbacks, paths that spiraled in on themselves over and over again. But the citizens of Wonderland knew how to navigate the hedges, and no one knew them better than Red, who'd spent the majority of her childhood wandering them and figuring out all the shortcuts. For being the daughter of the Queen of Hearts didn't exactly make Red popular. Sure, she had all the influence in the land. She could have snapped her fingers and had companions by her side in a moment. But who wanted that? It was better to be alone and focus on yourself than to be with people who secretly didn't like you. That was what Red's mother said, at least. The Queen of Hearts discouraged friendships, and though sometimes Red wondered what it would be like to have someone around with whom she could really talk, she guessed it was for the best. Most of the Wonderland kids were intimidated by Red and her mom. Red didn't exactly blame them, but she would have appreciated someone to talk to right now. Red wandered the hedges with nowhere to go and no one to consult about the Queen's pronouncement. In one corner of the maze, there was a gnarled old tum-tum tree that rose above the surface of the hedges and stretched toward the castle's towers. When Red climbed to its highest branch, she could see over the twisting patterns of green, the black and white checkerboard of the garden, the gates at the edge of the maze, and onto the rest of Wonderland. It was her favorite spot, and hers alone. Now Red looked out over the drab and curious world that would soon be directly affected by her words, her choices, her actions. It was a city of pink and red buildings, covered in clever shadow decorations of hearts, spades, diamonds, and clubs. This had been home for all of Red's 16 years of life. But did she really feel any affection toward it? Red wrapped her arm around the tum-tum tree and thought of the strict rules and expressionless soldier cards, the dull afternoons of garden unparties, and the lack of personality in nearly everyone she met. Red let out a disappointed sigh as she acknowledged how easy the answer was. No. She couldn't find much in Wonderland to care about, at least not the way she'd experienced it, and the prospect of ruling over it felt equally grim. But perhaps that was the right thing. The Queen of Hearts often said that if you care about something too much, it would get taken away. Red had learned this the hard way with a few stuffed animals and later hobbies over the years. She would never recover her sewing machine from the bottom of the moat, where the Queen had thrown it after outlawing anyone but the kingdom's authorized tailors from making their own clothes. "You'll be just like me," her mother had said. Red pushed her wavy hair away from her face irritably and worked it into a half braid. Red was perhaps the only one in Wonderland not intimidated by the Queen of Hearts, but she didn't understand her mother either. The Queen was aloof and cold. Red tensed every morning at the breakfast table when she heard her mother coming down the stairs, trying to gauge what kind of mood the Queen was in by the cadence of her footsteps. Could it be that the power had, gone to the Queen's head? Would Red turn out the same way once she was Queen? Would this be the beginning of her end? Would she never, ever have any fun? In the far distance, Red could see the murky shape of the dismal mere, with its swampy and moss-covered depths. Beyond that, she knew was the endless Tulgey wood, and somewhere even farther lay the closed-up entrance to the rabbit hole. Red had never once been outside Wonderland. Whenever she brought up the idea to her mother, the queen snorted, rolled her eyes, and said, "I've worked hard to make Wonderland the best of the best. Those only piddly kingdoms. Just a mess of people running willy-nilly, shouting their opinions and complaining about this, that, and the other. Just dreadful." She shook her head as always and pursed her lips. "Here, people are so calm and well-behaved. Why would you go anywhere else?" But Red couldn't help wondering, what could it be like to visit other parts of the world? She'd even heard rumors that there was once an island that housed all the villains of folklore, a dastardly and dangerous place where nobody followed any rules at all, and everyone did whatever they wanted. The Isle of the Lost. It all sounded perfectly wonderful to Red. But speaking at this most important tea ceremony would mean she was publicly showing her loyalty to the throne, bound to Wonderland forever. From the top of the tum-tum tree, she could see the now empty checkered garden, where a lone soldier guard was removing the dessert mush from the pond with a net. Where was the boy who had stolen the tarts now? Was he in the dungeons? Red stood balancing on the rough bark of the tum-tum tree. She would not issue any kind of new horrible royal decree at the Wonderland tea ceremony. She simply couldn't. The prospect made it seem like Red's life would be over, and really, she hadn't even truly begun to live. The light of the setting sun hit Red's face, and she thought it over. It wasn't enough to just sneak out after curfew and surreptitiously swipe a sword or a helm here and there. A girl wanted to train after all. Like the boy who had taken the forbidden tarts, Red would take what she wanted, because somewhere before Red, just out of reach, was the equally enticing possibility of life out from under her mother's thumb. She began to climb down from the tree with new strength in her arms, eyeing the rigid lines of soldier cars as they filed out for the evening watch. "I'm going to light this place up," she told herself as her feet touched the neat lawn of the hedge maze once more, "if it's the last thing I do."